Well, hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today to talk about exercise for people with Parkinson's. My name is Michel. For those who don't know me, I was diagnosed 5 years ago, but I have been symptomatic for 7 years. The reason why I'm presenting to you today is that I have been co-managing a Parkinson's support group called No Silver Bullet for Parkinson's for a few years now with my friend Mark. And we basically believe in sharing the science of Parkinson's. And we basically have been, if you just admit someone else, we have been organizing sessions with some of the best Parkinson's specialists in the world on Zoom once a month. We have posted that on our YouTube channel where you can find the details. So I do have a lot of information that I have gathered over the last 3 years, and exercise has been one of the key themes, not the only one by far, but an important theme during those 3 years. Now, we basically, as I said, have been sharing this information on YouTube on a monthly basis. Interestingly, we have had 800,000 views of our videos so far in 3 years, which just shows you the appetite that the PD population has for information about not only medicine, but all the things we can do to try to slow down progression of the disease and try to improve on our symptoms. I would like to stress that I am not a doctor. I basically used to work in financial services. So what I'm going to tell you today is really for information only. You should really stay in touch with your medical team. It is quite obvious. The other thing to mention as well is that this presentation is inspired largely by a presentation by Professor Bas Bloem, a Dutch neurologist who is one of the best Parkinson's minds in the world, who presented to our group or support group 2 years ago on exercise. If you want to see the full presentation of Professor Bloem, which I recommend to you, go to our YouTube channel or go to our website and look up for No Silver Bullet 4 PD, No Silver Bullet number 4 PD, and you will find this information. Let me share my screen and start the presentation. Here we go. So we're going to talk about Parkinson's and exercise for people with Parkinson's. This is basically setting the stage. I'd like to position exercise as one of the key things that people with Parkinson's can do to manage their symptoms, but it's not the only thing. And we are not suggesting that exercise should be a substitute to medication. Medication is one of the key pillars of Parkinson's. Exercise is the one we're going to talk about today, but the other ones are nutrition, what we put in our body to help our body recover and manage the symptoms, meditation, which basically helps cool the engine if you want, and basically get back to a more serene frame of mind. Stress is not good for people with Parkinson's. Stress can be, when it is chronic, a trigger of Parkinson's. It doesn't give you Parkinson's, but it can uncover Parkinson's. So meditation is critical as well. Technology, we talked about DBS as one of the key technology developments that are helping people with Parkinson's, but there are many others. For instance, linking it to exercise, I personally use a virtual reality headset to bring some novelty to my exercise routine that sometimes can get otherwise a bit boring. And then social is something we don't talk a lot about, but it is critical. And Laurie Mishley, who is a very famous US naturopath focused on Parkinson's, has identified that social isolation and loneliness can be one of the key drivers of a negative development of Parkinson's, of symptoms over time. But let's go back to exercise. So this beautiful picture shows me in Poland on holiday last summer, just before a 5 hours hike in the Polish Tatra Mountains. Now, I just want to say this was at the start of the session of the walk, and we were not planning for 5 hours. The 5 hours was an accident. We were aiming for 2 hours. I was diagnosed 5 years ago, as I said, symptomatic for 7 years. I exercise 6 days per week. Saturday is my holiday. On a daily basis, I do around 50 minutes of weights and stretching, 30 minutes of cross trainer or cycling, 20 minutes of hands exercise, because for me, I don't have as much tremor as some other people do. but I do have a lot of rigidity in my hands, so hands exercise are very important. And then voice exercises, which I'm being told are really helping strengthen my voice, although it doesn't really work. It only works if you maintain those exercises, and this is something I need to do a bit better than I have been doing so far. Then when the weather allows, I live in Oxford in the UK, and it's quite rainy here and muddy at the moment, but when the weather allows it, I go for a 2 hours walk instead of the weights and the cross trainer. Now, exercise and Parkinson's is not a myth. I just wanted you to be aware that if you're looking at Google at the articles published this year on Parkinson's and exercise, you have, I can't see this because of this little window here, but we have actually around 140,000 articles being published just this year on this topic. And there is 137 ongoing trials on exercise. So exercise is really an important topic, and the fact that it does help people with Parkinson's is not a myth. If you look it up, you will find thousands of articles confirming this. Now, what are the effects of exercise? They help with those symptoms. They help slowing down progression. And then this is really quite crazy and encouraging. It could possibly be halting the progression or reversing the symptoms of Parkinson's. And I say that because this article published in February this year by the Yale School of Medicine shows that exercise has a potential not just to slow down Parkinson's, but also to reverse the neurological decline. And this is quite crazy. And it goes back to the idea that exercise is like a medicine. If there was a pill existing in the world that would give us the same benefits as exercise, we'd all be rushing to buy it. Now, the bad news is that there is no such pill. The good news is that we can replicate those effects by exercising, and though it is in our hands. Now, I'm not a scientist, but those pictures, you may be familiar with those green and yellow dots. As you see, a Parkinson brain does not have a lot of red in the substantia nigra. So the dopamine transporters are affected. When you see red, this is good. And this is after 6 months of exercise, people are recreating, basically reinvigorating their dopamine transporters. And the chart on the right shows you something similar. Each line is actually, apart from the black lines, is an individual. And the dotted line shows you the expected decline in dopamine transporters if no exercise is being done, while the solid black line represents the average results for the group. And it shows an improvement in basically Parkinson's symptoms and Parkinson's dopamine transporters. Now, what type of exercise? Now, the good news is that almost any type of exercise is good, but it's better to mix different types of activities if you can, so that you can target the cardiovascular endurance. I personally do cross-training, like a Nordic skiing type of training at home, as well as internal bicycles. Sorry, I don't know who is talking, but can you please mute yourself? Thank you very much. Then the strength training, which in my case is basically mainly weights. I don't aim to become a Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I think that it is important for the posture and for the overall body health to have muscle mass to help you. Flexibility, so the stretching and flexibility exercises, and balance and agility, neuromotor exercises. This can be yoga, this can be Tai Chi, this can be Pilates. So the good news is that almost anything is good. You just need to select the things you like and try to have some variety in what you do. Now, this is really interesting. I'm a big fan of the PD Buddy app because I'm using it every day to support my routine and also to keep myself informed on new developments in Parkinson's and meeting people, which I have done for quite a while now. But when you look at what people on the app, the 2,000 or so PD Buddies do, most of them do weights, which is by far the most practiced type of exercise, twice more than walking, which is the second one. Walking, cycling, boxing. Boxing is very good. Aerobic, dancing, running. You see the list there. So basically, the main thing is that you can do almost anything, and you should do the things that you like and try to bring some variety in what you do. Interestingly, well, just a word of caution on swimming is that I personally found that after a few years after my diagnosis, I was no longer able to maintain my buoyancy and swim as well as I used to, and it was becoming dangerous for me. Since then, I have regained part of this. I can swim again, but I'm no longer as comfortable in the water as I used to be. But all the other activities are quite safe, I think. Now, There's all kinds of activities. Remember, we didn't talk about gardening, dancing, etc., but there is tons of activities you can do. Now, how hard should you be training? This is a good question. Very often you hear people telling you that you should try to aim for a certain percentage of your maximum heart rate. So for instance, 80% of your maximum heart rate, that could be 140 per minute. Now, the problem with that is that for people with Parkinson's, that may not work. For me, it doesn't work, for instance. I really struggle to get to 100 heart rates per minute and maintain it. And that's because the autonomic nervous system, which regulates heart rate, is affected by Parkinson's. So how should you know, how should you target, if you want, the right level of exercise, of exhaustion? Well, the right level, according to Professor Bas Bloem, is to be panting, a bit like a dog, but then to be able to still hold the conversation. And also the fact that you will be sweating like the gentleman on the picture can be a good sign that you're exercising at the right level. Now, this video shows me during my Polish excursions, and this is my wife. As you can see, this is at the end of the 5 hours. We're not doing well, but we did it. And it was supposed to be a 2-hour walk, which ended up into a 5-hour walk under the rain, but we still managed to do it. And feeling tired immediately after exercise, like I was doing on that day, you can see my face, I'm not looking great, isn't harmful, it's actually beneficial. It shows you have exercised. Now, Professor Bas Bloem recommends that you should aim to exercise during your own state to maximize the effectiveness of your efforts. And he's also suggesting that you shouldn't be shy to increase your dopamine, your levodopa dose a tiny bit to be able to exercise fully. That's what I tend to do personally. Now, how often should you exercise? Well, the minimum should be 3 times a week, and the minimum should be 30 minutes for each of those sessions. Now, the ideal is 5 to 6 times a week, which I'm doing 1 to 2 hours. And I realize it's not possible for everyone, but Professor Bloem mentioned something really quite interesting, which is the concept of snacking. It is basically small bites of exercise you can do each day. So if you go to the office and your office is on the 2nd floor of a building, try to forget about the elevator or the lifts and try to walk the stairs. If you go for a local bout of shopping, try to walk if you can. So try to take the opportunities to go up and down the stairs without falling, or doing anything you can do, like gardening, for instance. Those things you need to do. Try to find an exercise twist. And if you do 20 snacks a day of 2 minutes, you have your quota already. Now, interestingly, the benefits of exercise for Parkinson's are not just for people with Parkinson's. We know that intuitively. It's good for the heart. It strengthens the bones. People as they age tend to have fragile bones, and sometimes when they fall, they break more easily. So the strength of your bones is important. Reduces the risk of dementia. Now, dementia is a high risk for people with Parkinson's, but it's also a high risk for anyone in the population. Muscle strength, lung function, mental health, anti-aging. And this is a chart from Bas Bloem, who basically shows the idea that if you exercise, you might be able to stabilize your Parkinson's. If you do nothing, you know that you're going to be on the red line, and the worst scenarios are available to you. Now, exercising is not just about the cardio and the strength that we mentioned about a few minutes ago. It's also about parts of your body, like the brain, which is part of your body. I personally exercise my brain through brain exercises every day, around 40 minutes every morning. It has become a routine. I'm using 2 apps called Elevate and Lumosity, but there are others that you can find on Apple Store and Google Store. The hands, as I said, in my case, I do have rigidity in my hands, and I exercise my hands for 20 minutes each day with fingers exercises and with writing exercises. Now, interestingly, I was really struck a few years ago when I found that I could no longer write a birthday card to my daughter because my writing had become so macroscopic and so shaky that I was ashamed, and it was impossible to read what I was writing. But through daily hands exercises, I have regained a lot of my writing capability. Now, I can't write super fast. I can't take notes in a meeting, but when I need to write an important document, I can do it. The voice exercises are quite important. I don't know for you, but in my case, my voice has been fading away and I need to repeat what I say several times. Daily voice exercises help you maintain this. If you don't do it daily, and I'm guilty of not always doing it as often as I should, unfortunately, the effect is not lasting, so you need to maintain it. And this is a beautiful picture from one of my favorite places in Oxford. This is called Blenheim Palace. Blenheim Palace is the only privately owned palace in the UK. Would you believe this is the Marlborough family? One of their members is Winston Churchill. This is a beautiful palace, but also a beautiful garden. And this is a way for me to turn what would be a boring walk into a moment of pleasure and relaxation. So why do people not like to exercise? Well, we're all normal human beings. And if we had a pill that was taking care of all those symptoms, it would be so easy. There is no such pill. So we have no choice. Some people don't feel the difference. And sorry for the typo there. Interestingly, as I was re-listening to Bas Bloem's video yesterday, I found out that two interesting things were taking place. Is that when you exercise, the benefits are not being felt when you're on, they're being felt when you're off. And I didn't think about that because obviously we try to minimize the periods of off time as much as we can. So we may not always feel the benefits because we're on, but if we were off, we might just feel a difference. Now, being tired, having no time, we spoke about that. I'm tired, yes, I know. And apathy is a big symptom of Parkinson's, but I think we have to push ourselves out of the sofa to do something. No time. I understand that I'm quite privileged because I was able to stop working, but not everyone is in that situation. And that's where the concept of snacks can come in, which is basically try to be opportunistic to transform some daily activities into exercising and the fear of falling. Now, the fear of falling is very justified. I would just say that maybe that indoor cycling could be a solution, simply because your feet and your hands are anchored and give you 4 points of stability. Now, what else could you do? Well, this is not cheap, but hiring a personal trainer can be a good motivator. If the person is knocking on your door once a week, you will have to open. Or you can find a buddy to exercise. And PD Buddy is interesting because there is a social section in PD Buddy that allows you to see other people with Parkinson's in your area. And if they share their routine, you can see maybe that some people share a similar interest for a type of exercise that you like. Reward yourself. This is the PD Buddy points. But otherwise, for me, a great reward is after I have done a half an hour of intense cross-training on the Nordic skiing type of machine is a long bath. That is my reward. And watching movies while exercising can be a way to tackle the boring aspect that can sometimes be associated with the routine of exercising every day. And then, as I said here, do activities you enjoy, like walking in a beautiful park. Now, this is an interesting slide because it just shows actually my shoes when I still was working 5 years ago. And I hadn't noticed then before being diagnosed that I had Parkinson's, but I was shuffling and I was struggling to walk and my left leg was dragging and shuffling. And as you can see, the heel of the shoe was affected, was damaged. And I had to replace the heels of my shoes almost twice a year, which I hadn't really identified as a sign of Parkinson's, but there it was. And on the right, as you can see, I have a different shoe style nowadays. And as you can see, there is far less impact on the shoes. I have had them for a few years. So this brings a concept that actually you don't always realize the improvements of some of your symptoms, and journaling might be a way to capture the picture of certain moments in your journey, if you want, and to compare them to your improvements. So PD Buddy has an interesting journaling option that you can use for that purpose. Now, I feel very strongly about this. I really believe that exercise should be prescribed by our neurologist as a medicine. And think about this, and this may be the only thing I'm asking you to remember from this presentation. Hopefully you remember a bit more, but if there is only one message, it is that if there was a pill that was providing the similar benefits that are associated to exercise, we would be basically fighting for it and trying to get it as soon as possible. Now, as I said, there is no such pill, but exercise is part of your therapy. Now, I wish that actually neurologists and movement specialists were more actively prescribing exercise for people with Parkinson's. My neurologist, for instance, has finally started to mention it after 2 or 3 years of relationship, but he finally does. So there might be some change there as well. People start to realize that there is not much you can do, but exercise is one of them. Now, I just wanted to share with you my weekly routine to give you a sense for what I'm doing every day. It's just for inspiration. I tend to wake up at 7 o'clock on the clock. I do my mental exercise, as I mentioned, 45 minutes. I practice red light therapy. We can talk about that later. Meditation, physical exercises, hand exercises, lunch, red light therapy again, physical exercises, bath, this is the best moment of the day, dinner, meditation, and voice exercises. But this gives you a sense for a type of routine. This is not the only one by far, but hopefully that gives you an idea of what can be done. So I will stop the presentation here, but I wanted to thank you already for joining us today and listening to me. I hope this presentation was of interest. As I said, I'm strongly encouraging you to look up on our YouTube channel, on our website, the Professor Bas Bloem presentation exercise from December 2022. He's the daddy, he's the worldwide specialist of Parkinson's. And I have here taken some of the main parts of his message, but there is much more in this presentation. So thank you very much. I will stop the recording